Welcome to Try This at Home. I'm your host, Amber Latinen, and this is week 7 of the Tough Love series. If you are joining for the first time for this video, I encourage you go back and watch a few of the previous week's videos, as this week brings on a whole new level of relationships. This is our final week of the Tough Love series, so be sure to stay tuned after the Try This at Home portion of the video to see a little sneak peek in what I have coming up next. Previous weeks, we have been talking about how we show love in various different relationships in our lives, from our households, our spouses, and our children. Last week, we talked about neighbors, and this week, we're talking about enemies. Yeah, it's a pretty loaded word when we realize that having an enemy doesn't always feel so great. And as we grow and mature, we have to figure out the best ways to get along with people so that things don't become too overwhelming, whether that be in our workplace or in our communities, wherever it is that we come in contact with these enemies. We all have them, so we'll just get that out in the open. We are not made to agree and be the exact same as everyone else. How boring would life be? But hopefully, by the time we get through some of the topic of conversation today on enemies, you'll be able to open your hearts a little bit more and figure out ways to not only forgive your enemies, but to get along with them. And our goal is to love our enemies. When you think about the people that you would consider an enemy, or maybe it's the other way around, maybe you don't think you have anyone who's an enemy to you, but maybe you realize someone might consider you their enemy. How does that make you feel? And how would you want to resolve that? I hope there's a place in your heart that makes you want to come to some sort of peaceful agreement to either agree to disagree, to get along the best that you can for the sake of the environment that maybe you're forced to be in contact with this person. What about for yourself? What about forgiveness? Are you able to forgive? Genuinely forgive the people that have wronged you. Because in forgiving them, you should feel a weight lifted. There should be some kind of peace that allows you to move beyond the grudge you were holding or the negative feelings that you had associated with that person. But then here comes the real tricky part. How do you love your enemies? As I prepared for the message today, I realized pretty quickly on that this was going to be impossible for me to answer. What I realized is, as humans, I don't think that we can love our enemies on our own. I think we need Jesus to do that. With Jesus, with the example that he has set for showing empathy, kindness, and love, only through him makes it possible for us to love our enemies. All right, for the last time of this Tough Love series, it is time to try this at home. Here's your task this week. I want you to connect with one of those enemies that you have on your mind. Have a conversation. If you're not yet ready to talk to them in person, write a letter. Maybe you're not even to the point yet where you're ready to give the letter to them. but in one way or another, get your feelings out. Forgive them. By forgiving a person who has wronged you, you are also giving yourself the gift of peace by letting this hardship be lifted. And then comes the tricky part. Figuring out how to love the enemy that's wronged you. I hope that you will, like me, find this possible through Jesus. Maybe that means coming to a church service in the next week. Maybe it means talking to someone that you know who goes to church. Maybe it's figuring out a way to pray. If it's your first time ever trying to pray, I assure you, God is ready to hear what you have to say. Find a way to forgive and love your enemy. This is going to be hard, but do it anyway. That's tough love. Hey everyone, I'm Amber Latinen, and every year I make it a personal goal to read my Bible. Sometimes this means reading cover to cover. Other times I follow a Bible plan that I haven't used before. I hope that you'll join me in reading your Bible this year. And for those of you that might need a little help, or maybe it's because you're one of my little friends who isn't a very efficient reader yet, I'm going to be reading the Spark Storybook Bible to all of you. We're going to go through page by page, chapter by chapter, all the way through this special book, and I hope you'll join me.